since China included rare earth refining technology in the banned export list and imposed export restrictions on 7 types of rare earth materials. The global rare earth supply pattern has changed dramatically. Now, many companies are in a difficult situation to get earth, and countries are queuing up for China's approval. However, the speed of approval varies greatly. Those countries that often participate in sanctions against China can only wait slowly, while countries that maintain a friendly attitude towards China will naturally approve much faster. But right now, European automakers are feeling unprecedented pressure. Take the auto giant Stellantis as an example. Due to the inability to get rare earth magnets in time, some of their production lines in Europe were forced to stop working. Workers stood in the factory with nothing to do and could only chat to pass the time. More importantly, this is not a problem for a single company. Throughout Europe, the rare earth stocks of many automakers have already turned on the red light. 2 weeks ago, the European Union directly issued an emergency ultimatum to Beijing, hoping that China would give priority to shipping 100,000 tons of rare earths to Europe within 30 days to avoid paralysis of the entire industry. At the same time, Stellantis, which has set up a factory in Serbia, also hopes to take advantage of the good relations between Serbia and China to open a friendly channel for them to import rare earth materials. In the end, China also made a clear response. China does have restrictions on rare earth exports, but this is not aimed at friendly countries like Serbia. The meaning of this is very clear: countries that are unfriendly to China want to negotiate? No way. But the question is, will China change its position next and give priority to restoring the supply of rare earths to the whole of Europe? And how deep has the crisis of European car companies fallen into at this moment? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. In the 1930s, the United States was almost synonymous with the kingdom of automobile production. At that time, brands such as Ford, Chevrolet, and Buick became one of the most popular cars in the world. Decades later, in 2003, the emergence of Tesla broke the pattern of traditional fuel vehicles. This startup quickly became a leader in the global electric vehicle field with its bold imagination and technological innovation of electric vehicles. However, as far as I know, China exported a total of 1.203 million new energy vehicles in 2023, and this number increased directly to 1.284 million in 2024. But this growth rate naturally caused tension in some countries. In order to restrict Chinese electric vehicles, in May 2024, the United States directly raised the tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles from the original 25% to 100%, almost setting up a wall to prevent Chinese car companies from entering the U.S. market. Subsequently, the U.S. Department of Commerce also proposed to ban the import of any connected car technology containing Chinese-made hardware or software. The meaning of this ban is, as long as it is related to China, whether it is a complete vehicle or parts, it is not allowed to be imported into the United States. Even companies such as CATL that mainly make batteries have been involved. Some U.S. lawmakers even suggested that it be included in the blockade list. After seeing the frequent actions of the United States, some European countries could not sit still. In July 2024, the European Commission officially released an anti-subsidy investigation report on Chinese electric vehicles and decided to impose temporary tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China, with a tax rate range of 17% to 37% for a trial period of 4 months. 3 months later, the European Union announced that it would impose tariffs of up to 80% to 100% on new energy vehicles exported from China to Europe, and this policy would start from the beginning for 5 years. In just a few months, the United States and the European Union attacked from both sides, almost joining forces to block Chinese electric vehicles. For a time, many people speculated that Chinese electric vehicles were basically finished. But the development of the matter was far more reversed than the outside world expected. As far as I know, in April 2025, Chinese electric car giant BYD made a beautiful counterattack in the European market. In that month, BYD's pure electric car sales in Europe reached 7,231 units, a year-on-year increase of 169%, surpassing Tesla's 7,165 units for the first time in history. This achievement directly slapped the faces of those who were pessimistic about Chinese electric cars. Even more eye-catching is the data for the entire first quarter. China's global market share of new energy vehicles reached 67.7%. In other words, for every 3 new energy vehicles sold in the world, 2 of them are from China. But after the EU's tax increase measures obviously did not achieve the expected effect, they suddenly changed their faces and shouted to China, hoping that China could provide some key rare earth resources to save Europe's local automobile industry. So, how deep is the crisis in which European car companies are now? As far as I know, problems have begun to arise in Europe as China has begun to implement rare earth export restrictions. Many parts factories and production lines have been forced to stop production, and the situation is still deteriorating. By May 2025, the rare earth stocks of many European companies have already turned red. If no solution is found, more production lines may face the crisis of suspension in the next 3 to 4 weeks. In this crisis, the new energy vehicle industry is the most directly affected. After all, rare earths are the fastest growing key resource in this field. An electric car uses about 1 kilogram of rare earth magnetic materials, mainly used for core components such as drive motors and sensors. The problem is that there is no alternative to this material in a short time. If the supply of rare earths is really cut off, not only will the car not be built, it may even slow down the overall process of Europe's ban on the sale of fuel vehicles in 2035. Moreover, since April this year, European auto suppliers have successively submitted hundreds of applications for export licenses, but only about a quarter of them have been approved. In addition, China's pace of issuing licenses is relatively slow. Even if the license is obtained, the goods are often stuck during customs clearance. This wave of rare earth crisis has directly caused an automobile production crisis for mainstream car companies in Europe, such as Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and even part suppliers like Bosch that rely on rare earths to produce electric vehicle motors. Some car companies even directly stated that if the shortage of rare earths continues, the delivery time of some high-end models may be extended by more than 3 months. Of course, the soaring prices of rare earths will also directly affect the terminal market. If the supply problem of rare earths cannot be solved by the end of July, the average selling price of new energy vehicles may increase by 8% to 10%. This situation is very bad for European car companies because they have to face competitors like Tesla on the one hand and also try to import rare earths to resume electric vehicle production on the other. But the question is, has Europe never thought about building a rare earth industry chain to get rid of its dependence on China? In fact, Europe had also imagined getting rid of its dependence on China's rare earths, and even thought that this was not difficult to solve. The European Union once announced an investment of 1.7 billion euros to support local rare earth projects. At the same time, German automakers are also accelerating cooperation with Australian mining company Arafura to try to establish an alternative supply chain. But the reality is much more complicated than they expected. It takes 5 to 10 years to build new refining capacity alone, and China still has an absolute advantage in cost control and technological maturity. Of course, some European countries have tried to find another way, such as approaching Romania, hoping to cooperate in the development of local rare earth mines. As a result, European engineers found, after field investigation, that the reserves were very limited and the mining cost was more than 3 times higher than that of China. This shows that the project was doomed to fail from the beginning. But the more critical issue is that rare earth processing requires a complete chemical and metallurgical industry chain to support it. And it is almost impossible for Europe to rebuild such a system in a short period of time. In March 2025, the European Commission also launched a strategic list covering 47 key raw materials, 14 of which directly target the rare earth field, and declared that it would increase its independent supply capacity of rare earths fivefold by 2030 and completely get rid of its dependence on China. But the dilemma Europe faces today is ultimately a serious misjudgment of the global rare earth industry chain. Because China currently controls 87% of the world's rare earth processing capacity and 91% of its refining capacity. From raw or mining to high-end magnetic material production, China has built a complete and efficient industrial system. Therefore, Europe has always wanted to follow the United States to suppress China's electric vehicles and launched an industrial strategy of de-Sinicization, which is undoubtedly a wrong decision. But in the face of the rare earth crisis, Europe can only temporarily put down its posture and ask China to optimize the supply of 100,000 tons of rare earths. In June of this year, the EU ambassador to China took the initiative to seek talks with China, hoping that Beijing could speed up the approval process for rare earth exports and allow more European countries to get the much-needed rare earth resources as soon as possible. At the same time, they also hope that China can understand Europe's current predicament and even ask China to come up with a solution to the rare earth supply within a month. In return, Europe has vaguely released a good signal, suggesting that if this difficult time can be successfully overcome at some stage in the future, Europe will consider further strengthening its cooperative relationship with China. But surprisingly, what the EU waited for was not the rare earth supply list it wanted, but a 5-year tax increase notice from Beijing. According to China's official announcement, from July 1st, 2025, China will continue to impose anti-dumping duties on stainless steel billets and hot-rolled plates from the EU, the UK, South Korea, and Indonesia for a period of 5 years. Some people wonder if China is shifting focus and taking the opportunity to fight back. But in fact, this tax increase decision was not sudden. As early as 2019, stainless steel billets from the EU had already flooded into the Chinese market on a large scale at prices below cost. At that time, these European manufacturers kept prices extremely low, eroding a large number of orders from Chinese local steel companies. As a result, China's own steel mills are suffering. Not only are their profits almost squeezed out, but some factories have even found it difficult to maintain operations. At that stage, the EU's share of stainless steel in the Chinese market soared from 12% to 23%. It seems that European companies' exports have increased, but the cost behind it is that China's local industries have suffered a serious impact. This kind of low-price dumping is essentially unfair competition. I thought that after a few years, the EU would at least reflect on its previous behavior. But the reality is just the opposite. When electric vehicles were just starting to gain momentum in China, the EU followed the United States in suppressing Chinese car companies, increasing tariffs, conducting investigations, and talking about fair competition while closing the market door tighter and tighter. Now, the EU is coming to China for rare earths again, with an attitude of it's natural and even asking China to solve the problem within a time limit. So, to be honest, I'm not surprised at all that China issued a 5-year anti-dumping duty notice this time. But I think this kind of counterattack is more like a reminder to the EU. Cooperation is mutual, not mutual suppression. But whether a relatively balanced solution can be found for this rare earth dispute, the next month will be a critical window period. As far as I know, at the invitation of the EU, the Chinese delegation will visit the EU headquarters in July and will successively visit Germany and France, during which they will hold multiple rounds of high-level dialogues with various parties. Judging from the current arrangements, this visit is to lay the foundation and pave the way for the subsequent China-EU summit, and everyone also hopes to properly solve the rare earth supply problem before the summit. But whether the result is what they want depends on how much sincerity they can show. To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.